All right, here we go.
I'm not entirely sure if people who are coming in can see the chat from messages before they came in. So maybe we can ask people if they've seen it.
Good evening, everyone. As you're joining, if you can let us know, our speakers have put their information in the chat. Can you see that in the chat? So you can see if you can.
I seen Nichelle's information.
Okay. Let's see, we've got Nichelle. Ladies, if you don't mind resharing, just in case people didn't get that information. All right. Well, good evening, everyone, and welcome to our final episode of the 2021 Young Alumni Summer Series, UAB and Beyond. My name is Christy Peters, and I am the Alumni Affairs Specialist for UAB School of Engineering. Thank you for joining us this evening. First, we would like to take care of a few housekeeping items. So if you haven't already, put yourself on mute. You can submit questions in the chat box, and I will be monitoring the chat throughout the presentation. We are recording this presentation and we'll provide this after our presentation this week. And please update your contact information using the link that I'm going to provide in our chat box. So with that being said, we are going to get started, and we will have Q&A with our panelists, but now I'm going to introduce our panelists. And first we have Rachel Panic. Rachel Thompson Panic is originally from Fort Payne, Alabama, and now lives in Atlanta while she pursues her PhD in Transportation Systems Engineering at Georgia Tech. She graduated from UAB in 2016 with a degree in civil engineering and a minor in Japanese. She loved her time as a Blazer, and she's excited to share more about her experiences with you. Next, we have Nichelle Preston. Nichelle Preston was born, raised, and is currently living in Huntsville, Alabama. She's heading into her third year of working at Lockheed Martin, and she hopes to continue working at Lockheed Martin in the near future. And a fun fact about her is she boxes. Next, we have Karis Martin. Karis is from Scottsboro, Alabama, and graduated from the civil engineering program at UAB in spring of 2014. The summer before her senior year, she applied for an internship through BlazerNet at BL Harbor International. Karis interned while completing her senior year, then joined the company full-time. She has been there for 8 years and is now a project manager for the company, where she manages jobs in the $20 million to $40 million range. Last, and certainly not least, is Zoe Panko. Zoe is from Birmingham, Alabama, where she earned her Bachelor of Science degrees in Mechanical Engineering and Mathematics at the University of Alabama at Birmingham. Currently, she is a PhD student and researcher in the Environmental Fluid Dynamics group under the co-advisement of Professor Kenneth T. Christensen, AME, and Diogo, CEES. So now I'm going to let our panelists introduce themselves further, starting with Rachel. Talk to us a little bit about your time as a student and what you studied. And then once they've all had a chance to introduce themselves further, we'll get started with our Q&A.
Great, thank you, Christina, for that lovely introduction. Hello, everyone. Again, my name is Rachel. I'm so happy to be here with you guys. I really did love my time at UAB. I feel like UAB was transformative in terms of my career trajectory, and so it is exciting to sort of come back in this way and have a chance to share what I've been up to with you all. I majored in civil engineering and had a minor in Japanese, which is kind of strange, but it ended up being really instrumental for me because I spent a lot of time in Japan and in Tokyo, and I became really interested in really great public transit that is around in lots of places of Japan. And so that got me interested in the sort of nexus between transportation and how cities operate and the infrastructure impacts on people. And so then I took that knowledge and brought it back to Birmingham and became really interested in cities and and studying what it is that we do as engineers, how that impacts people. And so when I graduated from UAB, I decided to sort of broaden my education a little bit, and I got a master's degree in in city and regional planning from Clemson University. And so that was really cool because I sort of took all of the sort of technical and mathematical skills that I'd used and applied them in a social science field, which was sort of led me to the areas of research that I liked the most. Then after graduating from Clemson, I worked for a couple of years as a planner and engineer for a company that designs bicycle and pedestrian infrastructure. And that was really important in shaping what I'm doing now, which is a PhD student at Georgia Tech, where I'm studying vulnerable road users. So bicyclists, pedestrians, e-scooter users. I think I'm excited about my research. I think it's an important field as we try to think about what a more sustainable future looks like. Active transportation has to be central to that. So I'm very excited to be doing the research that I'm doing, and thankful to UAB for helping to set me up for success in that way. So excited to hear from the other panelists.
Hey, can you guys hear me? Good. Okay, I'm Cheris Martin. Used to be Cheris Eustace. Actually went to college with Rachel at UAB. We were both in civil engineering together. Graduated spring of 2014. I interned while I was a student with a company called BL Harbor, and I still work there today. So we're going on 8 years, hopefully 8 more, if not more than that, and kind of making a change in my career right now. So I typically have, up until now, have been running projects. You know, I really enjoy talking to people. I love getting out, seeing new places. You know, prior to my husband and I starting our family, we were really into skydiving and just getting out and traveling. And so, you know, my job, being able to travel with the projects, gave me a lot of leeway to be able to get out and see a lot of areas that I hadn't gotten to see otherwise. And then in recent years, we've started our family. I've got a new baby who's 5 months old. And with that and with COVID and just kind of the way that things are changing right now, I'm starting a new opportunity with the company where I'm getting into more of a BIM modeling and clash detection style role where I'm supporting the jobs in the field from that standpoint. So really enjoyed my time at UAB. You know, I loved being there. I hated leaving. Every time I drove through Birmingham, headed to Harbor, which is over on Lakeshore, I just get really nostalgic. And I'm just super excited for all of y'all. I hope that all of y'all feel the same way. And I want to help you guys if there's anything I can do. And yeah, I'm excited for today. So thanks y'all for having me.
Hey, I'm Nichelle Preston. I started out at UAB in 2014 in biomedical engineering. I did graduate with a BME, but now I work as a systems engineer for Lockheed Martin. I did have an internship as a continuous improvement intern for Steris IMS near Avondale for part of the spring and summer semester of my senior year. I've been working at Lockheed, as you heard, for 3 years, and I hope to continue in it. I've become a really big aerospace nerd. I grew up in Huntsville, so I've just kind of been surrounded by the aerospace industry my entire life. And so it has fully absorbed me now. So if you want to talk space and fighter jets and planes, just let me know. I'm excited to help out any way that I can and tell you about how I managed to go from a biomedical engineer to a systems engineer that works for a missile defense company. So, but yeah, so that's all.
Hi, my name is Zoe. Thank you, Christina, for the great introduction. I'm not so far removed from UAB. I graduated in 2019 with degrees in mechanical engineering and math. When I was an undergrad, I did a lot of extracurriculars. I was in the marching band for all 4 years. SWE was a big part of my life. I was in ASME as well. And I started a co-op with Honda, but then I quit because I also did research at UAB, and I decided that I liked research a lot more. So I did some research for 3 years with Professor who I don't think is there anymore. But I did some work in distributed generation and did some modeling to see how cost effective a distributed generation system would be for the city of Birmingham. And I knew that I was always interested in something sustainability related. So that was what I wanted to study in my PhD as well. So I went directly into a PhD program when I graduated in 2019. So now I'm entering my third year as a PhD student at the University of Notre Dame, where now I do something a little bit different. It's still really sustainability, but now I'm in water resources and hydrology. So I do some experimental and computational studies of fluid dynamics, particularly small scale stuff, really tiny stuff. I make tiny micro models and I shoot lasers at it, and then I get to simulate it as well. And I'm really interested in the underlying fundamental science of that. And so if anyone is interested in academia, you have me and Rachel as well, since she's also working on her PhD. So I'm glad to be here.
Right. Well, thank you, ladies. That is a great introduction. I'm glad I had you tell a little bit more about yourselves than what I had on your bios. So we'll get started with some questions. Everyone, please feel free to submit other questions in the chat, or feel free to unmute yourself. This is informal. This is more just a conversation, especially with our panelists. So feel free to do that as you have questions. So first question is, why did you choose to go into the field that you did?
I can go first. So my dad is an auto mechanic and I was always kind of mechanically inclined growing up. So I realized quickly after entering college that mechanical engineering was not the same thing as being an auto mechanic, but I was still interested in the automotive field in general. And that's actually what got me interested and started on doing my co-op at Honda. But turns out I ended up enjoying doing research in the areas of sustainability more. So ended up being kind of a change, an unexpected change for me, but I just really enjoy math and science, so that's what made me stick with it as well.
Rachel.
For sure. I had zero interest in engineering growing up, but then when I was in high school, several of my friends were on the sort of competition that came to our high school called the Real World Design Challenge, and it was like a high school level aerospace engineering competition where you sort of design an airfoil and sort of design certain parts of an aircraft, and you compete with students from around the country. And I did not want to be a part of that team, but my friends were. And so they were like, join our team. If we win, we get to go to DC. It'll be really cool. And so I joined the team, and towards the end of the project, something about it clicked. And I just was like, oh, this is why people would want to do a career in engineering. So when I came to UAB, the sort of question that I had to guide what I wanted to do was like, what types of engineers get to work with people the most? Because I really wanted to, I knew that my strengths and the things that I enjoyed doing were things with other people. So I ended up in civil engineering and probably took more structural engineering classes than anything else. But like I said, when I spent some time abroad, I sort of got inspired by the interconnectedness of cities and what that means in terms of transportation. And so I sort of moved into the transportation field from there.
Michelle?
Yeah, I grew up, I mean, I literally live in the city of engineers. So you can't throw a pebble without hitting an engineer. And I just always knew I wanted to be an engineer. I liked the challenge of engineering, the critical thinking that's required. The only thing was I didn't know what kind of engineer I wanted to be. I knew I didn't want to be civil, no offense, Rachel, or mechanical, no offense, Zoe. And so I learned about biomedical engineering on a trip that my high school human A&P teacher took us down to UAB, and we learned about BME. And it seemed like a good challenge, and I like being challenged, and I like learning different things. And I think it balanced science because I have a minor in chemistry. I really liked chemistry. I'm a weirdo. It balanced chemistry, biology, and engineering all very well, and it provided a challenge because you're trying to figure out how to make all of those things work in concert with each other. And so I just really enjoyed that. And yeah, so that's how I picked out biomedical, but I really just love engineering in general. And that's kind of how I ended up okay with being a systems engineer at Lockheed, because engineering is engineering. I solve problems. I have to look at analysis and say, why isn't this working the way it should? Every day, and present to higher ups about, hey, this is what our weapon system is doing. And so it's always just really fun to critical think and derive, like, what's the problem? What is a potential solution to this? And so that's what I always liked about engineering. So it wasn't really about what one or the other I picked. It was just, I wanted to be an engineer.
Yes.
Sorry, I was trying to unmute. So I wish I had a super cool story about why I wanted to become an engineer, but I kind of ended up here the backwards way. I actually decided to go to UAB because I thought I wanted to go to dental school. And so I started my undergrad program in biology. And very quickly, well, I say very quickly, the start of my junior year, I realized that that was not for me. It wasn't what I wanted to do. And I had made a poor decision. And then I was realizing, oh gosh, I had junior year. So what do I do now? And so I went and I talked to my advisor, and they asked what I really enjoyed. And I just really enjoy math. I'm good at math. I enjoy it. And like, that's just, I wanted to do something with math. And I wanted my credits to transfer. And so I'd asked her, kind of what my options are. Because at this point, I'm out of ideas. I thought I wanted to be a dentist all the way up until I hit this wall and decided I didn't. And so I needed some guidance. And she kind of laid out some options for me. And similar to Nichelle, I also thought that civil engineering sounded boring because it sounds the least cool out of all of them, but it turns out it's actually really great. So I decided to start with civil. I thought, that'll get me into the engineering school, that'll kind of get me rolling in the right direction. I'll take the courses, the sophomore level engineering classes that kind of give you a little view of what all wanted to go the structural design route. And I got into the honors college. I started doing that sort of thing, and ended up getting the opportunity to go job shadow a structural engineer. And so when we got to go do that, I realized very quickly that I didn't want to design. I wanted to, like, the folks that are in boots and jeans working in the double wide trailer, like, those are my people. So that's what I do now, and I love it. I think it's a really cool way to get involved with all the different fields of engineering. Some of the buildings that I've had the opportunity to work on, I just finished up a couple of different facilities for Dynetics up in Huntsville in Research Park. So Nichelle, I'm right around the corner from you. I finished that up, and then I went directly over to a memory care facility, which is very healthcare based. And so, and we also do jobs at arenas for sporting events and that sort of things. We're working on a dorm at University of Alabama right now. And so it's a really good way to involve with a lot of different fields, federal, commercial, healthcare, whatever it is that you're interested in. It all kind of ties together. And so that's what I really enjoy about it.
Can everyone hear me? I think my internet's a little unstable. I apologize. So the next question we have is, what was your biggest challenge as a student? Anybody want to take that one? What was your biggest challenge as a student, Cheris?
I struggled with making friends. I actually thought, so I tried to do the sorority thing and it just wasn't a good fit for me. And, trying to switch gears from biology to engineering that late in my, undergrad career, I kind of felt like the groups had already kind of been made. And so trying to find a place where I fit. And honestly, it was the best thing that I did though, was, realizing that these folks were in the computer lab at the same time that I was in the computer lab, and I was seeing them in class. And, you kind of start talking and making friends, and then you work together on homework, and then you work together, studying for exams and that sort of thing. And so, but, getting the gumption to insert myself in conversations was really hard. And I've gotten better at it as I've gotten older, but, I do encourage any students out there, like if y'all are struggling, like just get out there and talk to them. They're scared, they're overwhelmed too. Make friends. It's going to help you, but that's hard in a new place,
Rachel, how about yourself?
Oh man, there were probably more than I could list, but the one that sort of comes to mind is a big challenge for me when I was as an undergraduate student at UAB was, I think, just sort of the adjustment from high school education to college education. I went to a very small rural public high school, which is a great thing in a lot of ways, but I think I had a lot of gaps in my education. And so then when I showed up at UAB, like the classes were obviously like more advanced, and a lot of my peers knew a lot of things that I didn't. And I just sort of like took it for granted that, like, of course you would know this, you would have been taught this in high school. And I just didn't have that type of education or those opportunities where I was from. And so I think the biggest thing for me was like filling the holes in those in those gaps in my education, and then sort of developing the work harder, or work smarter, not harder study skills, like just trying to figure out how to be a good student without like spending all of my time being a student. So I could be like a well-rounded person. I think it was challenging for me. And so as to take a feather from Cheris's book, like to encourage any students that are here or listening to this, like take advantage of your professors and take advantage of the opportunities, like the resources that are at UAB, because they're amazing. And I definitely feel like the professors I had and changed the trajectory of my life. Like, I don't think it's kind of crazy to think that I started as a struggling student from a rural high school at a university, trying to keep up with my peers, to being like a funded PhD student at Georgia Tech. I mean, and I think the support that I had at UAB was instrumental to that.
And I will interject before I ask Zoe to give hers. Deslyn Robinson, who is our Director of Career Services, she and Molly Kate have a great program, especially with our mentorship program. And so if you are a student on this, I would highly recommend that, getting involved with that. And also for our alumni who are on this call, I would highly recommend joining us, because you have a wealth of knowledge that you can share with our students. And so definitely get connected with Deslyn if you need help doing so. You can connect with me, and I will put you in contact with her if you're interested. So Zoe, if you don't mind telling us a little bit about what was the biggest challenge for you as a student?
Like I had mentioned earlier, I was involved in a lot of clubs and extracurriculars and marching band, which took up a lot of my time, probably close to 30 hours a week. And I think the thing that I struggled with was trying to give myself a little bit of grace and realizing that I didn't have to do it all to get ahead, and that it's good to focus on the things that you do well, but also give yourself a break every now and then, which is something that is still leaked into graduate school for me here. I get that a lot from my friends and my advisors to maybe stop working so much, but unfortunately it's maybe a habit that I've instilled in myself from undergrad, that I just was working all of the time, whether it was organizing outreach activities or going to a football game or studying for an exam. I was just doing things all the time. So I think taking care of yourself is very important, and instilling healthy habits in yourself early on, because when you're in your 20s and 30s, you'll definitely be thankful for it. But now I go to bed early, which is great. I didn't used to do that in undergrad.
That's very helpful information, especially, everybody's been watching the Olympics. We've all seen what's happened with Simone. And so I think that's something that, our students and alumni benefit from, knowing to take that time to take care of yourself so that you can be your best. Michelle, tell us about what was your biggest challenge as a student?
So along the same lines as Zoe, don't worry, Zoe, my time is 9 o'clock. So if not earlier, if I can manage it. Anyway, so my biggest struggle as a student was having an outlet outside of school. My freshman year, my first semester, I did marching band, which was really great. But then a lot of classes started to have just the times at which classes were only offered during marching band times and stuff like that. So I never did it after my freshman year. And a lot of my time was actually pretty much all of my time was spent like schoolwork. And school is a lot on top of you're adding, internships and, probably some of y'all are holding down part-time jobs on the side. And just having an outlet, I realized that this past year, that's why I picked up boxing, I picked up powerlifting, just some kind of physical outlet to kind of like relieve stress. It's been a good thing. It's been really good for me because I sit behind a desk for 40 hours a week. Yeah, there's sit to stand desks, but standing doesn't help out a lot that much. But just finding an outlet outside of school to kind of be able to like let frustration go, just let get your brain off of like what you should be doing. And like Zoe said, like give yourself some grace that you don't always have to be doing schoolwork, school related things all the time. You can have some time to just like take a mental break. So yeah, that's one thing that I definitely struggled with as a student, and even as a young professional, is I don't like to take vacation when I have work to do. It's very hard for me because I feel like I'm skipping school. And I don't think I've taken more than a couple days off the past, outside of like granted holidays from work. The past 3 years, I haven't used any of my accrued time off to actually go take vacations, which hopefully I'm about to change that. So take time off.
Well, Nichelle, I'll let you go into this next question since you were just speaking on this, but what do you wish you had done differently while you were a student, and what are you glad you did while being an engineering student at UAB?
One of the things I'm glad that I did was try different things outside of my wheelhouse. So one of the classes I took was public speaking, and Deslin is probably tired of me talking about this, but within my first year of working at Lockheed, I had to give, I was a presenter for a major presentation for my job, and having that public speaking class in my back pocket really helped me prepare what I was going to say, how I was going to say it, and what not to do while presenting, which I'm not doing a lot of those good things right now. But it's very helpful when you have, a good amount of time to prep, especially for a professional presentation. So that was one of the things I was really glad that I did at UAB. One of the things I wish I did differently, like I said, just find an outlet for just what, that you enjoy that's not related to school. I mean, it can be, I enjoy reading, but just find something that you enjoy, especially at school, because it can be hard, so.
Cheris, how about you?
Okay, so this is one that I'm super passionate about. Start co-op programs early. Start them early. Go to the career fairs as a freshman. It's okay that you're a freshman. It's okay that you're not in those tough technical classes yet. That's when they want you. Don't ever feel like you don't know enough about your career field yet to be able to get involved with a co-op or internship. That's false. That's not a reality. I was able to get an internship actually through BlazerNet. Is BlazerNet still live? Y'all still use that, Christine? Yes. Okay.
Handshake.
And what?
Sorry. Yes, Deslin knows better than I on that, but yes, Handshake is the big one we use.
Okay, so then Handshake. So at the time, that was not around whenever I was there. There was just BlazerNet. And I got an internship with BL Harbor. I just happened to pull up BlazerNet. Honestly, I'd never been on it. I'd heard about it, never logged in, never went to a career fair. And I was like, I've waited a little too long. I've realized that now, and I've kind of hit the panic button and logged on to BlazerNet. And there was an opportunity on there at Harbor. And like I said, it's turned into what I hope for to be a lifelong career for me because of BlazerNet. So use what they have available to you. real jobs are posted on there, and it's great companies, and it's what you're looking for. So use those resources. That's why they're there. So that's what I want to encourage you to do. And like I said, y'all, just waiting to go to career fairs was a terrible thing. For if there's any professors or admins out there, just encourage your students that there's no such thing as knowing too little to be able to get a job. I just am very passionate about that. Part of what I'm doing these days is helping to bring in new co-ops. And so, I see a lot of that. I see that them feeling like they don't have enough of a knowledge base to be able to get these jobs, and then they come in too late and they're not able to get this full 3 rotations in before graduation. So you need to start that process early. Start it at the end of your freshman year or the start of your sophomore year. That way you have time to get all those rotations in and do everything you want to do.
That's great advice. Zoe, how about you?
Oh, yeah. I was going to say that to piggyback off of what she said, I also strongly agree with that. Not only will it help you get your job in the future, but it will also help you determine whether that's a good fit for you or not. I started a co-op early as well, and I realized that was something I really didn't want to do. And so I had the time after that, because I did it so early on, I had those summers thereafter to try out other opportunities. And then in addition to that, I would say that particularly as a woman, it is easy to kind of talk yourself out of doing things because you might think that you don't have the experience and you feel that you need to be giving or have 110% of the knowledge to be able to apply for anything or look out for those opportunities. And I would say that you should always take the chance. There's no harm in trying. The worst that they can say is no. But then you would rather have a no than to live with the regret of thinking of what would happen.
Mhm, mhm. Yeah. Rachel, any thoughts for you on what you wish you had done, what you're glad you did while being a student?
I will totally copy Nichelle and Zoe, except for I would say the thing I wish I had done more was sleep. I studied hard and I had a really fun social life, and so I felt like I didn't sleep for 4 years, and I feel like I'm paying for it now. I don't know. And so that was something I wish that I had done. What I'm so glad I did, though, was connect to the UAB Fellowships Office. The UAB Fellowships Office completely changed my life, 100%. They encouraged me to apply for fellowships and scholarships that I never would have otherwise. And I think I was directed them by professors in the department and through some honors programs as well. And so I would definitely encourage you guys to connect with them either through the Career Center or through your own sort of self-introduction to the Fellowships Office. They were incredible, and they gave me a lot of the writing skills that I think I needed to grow in order to apply for these kind of competitive grad schools or whatever. They helped me build those skills and sort of paved the way for me to have some really incredible opportunities. So I'm thankful for them.
So my next question for y'all, because we do have a panel of ladies, is what do you think UAB and engineering as a whole can do to encourage more women to get into STEM? Rachel, you want to take it? You were just talking.
Oh man, I have so many thoughts about this. I hope that I can organize them in a helpful, constructive way. I could not agree more with Terrace's assessment. Or no, wait, was it Zoe who said it? I can't remember. Maybe it was Zoe who said that as a woman, you may feel like you need to be 110% qualified to do something. I was like, that was 100% my experience. And I know that's an experience for a lot of other women. I have to say, I think representation is a huge piece of it. Having women that look like you and having women that are from the places that you are from in positions that are positions of power and in positions that do really cool engineering work we can talk about programs and we can talk about pipelines, but at the end of the day, having that representation in the room is it seems, at least for me, was the biggest thing. When I had women engineers that I could look up to, it absolutely changed what I thought of myself and what I thought my capabilities would be. So that's one. And I also think that for better or for worse, maybe women may be more afraid to ask questions that they perceive to be stupid questions. And I feel like I wish I could get this like on a shirt and hand it out to every person that I've ever met. Like I've built an entire, hopefully an entire future career off of asking people stupid questions that turned into something that either gave me more knowledge or turned out not to be a stupid question after all. It was something that no one in the room had thought about. So I highly encourage people to ask stupid questions because even if you think they're stupid, you are probably smarter than you give yourself credit for. And maybe other people in the room hadn't even thought to ask that question. So I have so many more thoughts, but I'm going to turn it over because I bet other panelists have better thoughts than I do. So
I had two things to say, but now I think maybe I have three now that Rachel had mentioned that. So I guess I'll bounce off of what she said about asking the stupid questions. I realize that college is tough for a lot of people because, well, one, a lot of people are outside of their comfort zones, and two, some people, that's a period of a lot of growth for students, and so it's really difficult if you're the only woman in the room because you want to make sure that you're being respected by your peers, which can feel very difficult. But I think at the end of the day, it's recognizing that, you know, if people maybe think that your question is stupid, then that's their own problem and it's not your problem at all. I think, let's see, the other two things. Oh, Society of Women Engineers was integral for me. All the friends that I made through that were in biomedical engineering. I think I was the only mechanical. Well, actually, Natasha's on this call. She ended up being mechanical engineering as well, which was great. But there are very few women in mechanical, aero, electrical engineering, not a lot of us there. But part of that, I think, my second thought would be that it really helps to have men who are allies in your classes, particularly ones who are professors or advisors, because sometimes your colleagues can be kind of condescending, or maybe aren't being the nicest about the way that they're handling things, or maybe are straight up making sexist remarks. It's really helpful to have that person to have your back in a room where that's happening. And I think calling it out and stopping it at the source and making it clear that that is not an acceptable thing is very important.
Cheers.
Yeah, I agree with both the girls. When you first asked the question, my initial thoughts tied up with what Rachel said about, representation. And I know, I don't know what the professor count is right now, but if there's any female professors, or if you have the opportunity to add any female professors, I think that would be really nice. And I loved all of my professors, but I don't believe I had any female professors. So that would just kind of be neat, just to like you have the opportunity to learn from one before you go the course number. But it was some 100 level course that we had to take over in the Hohen building or something. And it was like, every week they would have like a professor from each of the different departments come in and talk, or somebody who works in the field come in and talk. And it was just to help you figure out what you wanted to do. And I think, getting some representation in those classes where, these young women are still very early on and trying to decide what they want to do and feeling like that's what they want to do, but they're a little too scared. Like maybe that would be enough to kind of give them that push to, take a chance at it. I think that would be great. And SWE is awesome. SWE is great. Keep pushing SWE. That's really great.
And Cheris, I have to speak to an example of representation. Cheris is cool, and Cheris works at BL Harbor. Maybe I should work at BL Harbor. I spent time looking at internships and stuff, and I think that was an area that I had no interest in, but just because I knew someone who was cool and someone who's a woman who worked at that firm, I suddenly became very interested in it. So I think that speaks huge volumes to the power of having representation.
Michelle?
So one of my favorite classes at UAB, what in the engineering department was my materials engineering class. I don't think civils had to take it, but I did. And I had Dr. Foley, and she is awesome. She was she just went with it. It was great. there were some moments where you were kind of like, is this person insane? And they were like, no, she's totally awesome. So your doctor is, I don't know if she's still there, but she's great. In general, the Kids in Engineering Day, I remember I helped out with that, I think my junior or senior year. And I remember helping out some girls that it was just with like, we had given them this like piece of string that was tied in a loop to just learn some like, how to do cup and saucer, Jacob's ladder, things like that. And I just remember them trying, and like, they immediately gave up after the first try, and I made them try again and again and again and again until they finally got it. And they were like so excited about finally getting it. And I think that would be like, I think Kids in Engineering Day is an awesome thing that should be continued. And just like whenever and just impress upon like the students that are helping and volunteering with it, that if something is not, like if they're not getting it the first try, to try again, because it's such a good feeling to get something right. Like even as even at work, when I realized that I didn't mess up my inputs and they were right, and it was just really just this random bug in the code that was the problem, that was not my issue. But I found it. It's just such a great feeling. So just encouraging that, like that perseverance and that determination to figure out the problem. As an adult, growing up, I grew up with all boys. I have two older brothers, all male cousins on both sides. And so I grew up with the mindset of like, I got to keep up with the boys, and I can keep up with the boys. So being that person in school has never really bothered me. But I will say, not feeling like you know enough is definitely one of the things that I definitely struggled with. My brothers are older than me by 5 and 6 years. And they're always going to somehow know more than me. It always felt like that. But when I started my job at Lockheed, I definitely didn't feel prepared at all. And it was all on the job training. It was great. And I talked to my aerospace and my mechanical friends that I started that same week with. And I was like, did y'all know any of this stuff before you started? And they're like, no, maybe a couple definitions, but everything else has been on the job training. And so we're all starting from the same, not necessarily for every job. There is some stuff like MATLAB and Linux that you can kind of learn beforehand, and some, coordinate transformations, whatever, that are helpful to have in your back pocket. But a lot of things you have to learn while you're at the job. And so it's just a matter of, are you willing to keep learning? And I think that's an important thing to just remind the girls and just everybody of, honestly. I know that my brother, he has interns under him, and if they aren't willing to learn, he doesn't really like putting up with them, because that's just not a good attitude to have in the workplace. So yeah, it's been really awesome at Lockheed. My manager is female. My manager's manager is female. And then I think the second from the top, so like we have our executive, our site exec, he's a VP, but the person right under him, so basically second in command, is a female. And I think our chief engineer for our program is female as well on the Lockheed side. So it's been really awesome to see all of this happen, and just have so many people that I'm working with and for. And it's really great at Lockheed. I'm not trying to pitch my company, but you can't really go wrong with them. At least I haven't yet, so.
Michelle, we're always looking for opportunities for our students, so pitch away. I'm sure Deslin would love to connect with you about more opportunities for our students.
Real quick before we switch questions, I do want to brag on UAB. I always felt like, it's such a melting pot place anyways, and y'all really own that, like you brand it, it's just the melting pot school. It's not everybody fits in this one mold like you would expect at some of the other four-year colleges in Alabama. And so I feel like that whole melting pot vibe just really helps everybody to feel like they have the opportunity to kind of flow towards whatever they're feeling, or what they think that they want to do, more than maybe they would, have that comfort level if they were somewhere else. So I think that that's really great. And I also wanted to compliment, I was always very blessed with, like I said, I never had any female professors, but all of my male professors were wonderful. And they were all very inclusive, and they were all very nice, and they answered my questions in the same tone as they would everybody else's questions. And I never felt any different than any of my other fellow students. Dr. Waldron would give me a hard time just like you would everybody else, but I appreciated that, and so I just really wanted to brag on y'all's professors, because I feel like the team that you guys had, at least whenever I was there from 2010 to 2014, they were all exceptional. And I hope that a lot of those guys are still there, but I just want to brag on the staff because they were always very, very good.
Thank you, Karis. So my next question was, what set UAB apart for you? Why UAB? Why did you choose UAB for your engineering?
I love this question so much. I have so many strong feelings about why I chose UAB and why I'm so glad that I went there. Probably reason number one is because UAB is in a city. I think even outside of like my interest in cities, like I think before I was really even could talk about like my interest of cities, or maybe before that had even developed, I wanted to go to school in a place that didn't feel like a summer camp, because I wanted to go to school and get training of to feel what it would be like in the real world. And I think that I totally got that at UAB. I volunteered at lots of different organizations. I had internships. I was exposed, as Charis was saying, exposed to lots of different people with lots of different like backgrounds and lots of different perspectives. And I don't know if I would have gotten that at a different university. And I think it helped me view my education as not just a place where I learn like technical skills or get prepared for a career, but it was a place where I learned how to be like a part of a community, like engineering is important and I care about engineering, but I loved that I got to go to school, an engineering school in a city that helped me contextualize how my career matters in the scope of everything else. And I have a really strong feeling I would not have gotten that at another university. And I had a great experience in a lot of ways, and where I got my master's degree at Clemson University. It was great in so many ways. But one thing I really missed was being in a metropolitan space where you have opportunities to interact with major employers, or in my case, like local governments and state departments of transportation. And I think UAB has that sort of opportunity just because of where it is. And I think both through the careers program and through programs and through like the honors programs, they sort of like funnel students out in the community. And I don't think I would have had that experience elsewhere. And just to plug UAB's Career Center, or the Engineering Career Center one more time. I remember telling some of my peers at other universities, other like major engineering universities, that companies would come to UAB to do interviews for co-ops. Like companies would come to UAB and interview students at UAB's campus, as opposed to students having to just kind of like go out and try to find those internships by themselves. And they were surprised. Like they were surprised that that opportunity would be available at an engineering program that's smaller than some of the other ones in our state even. And so I think that speaks, that's an additional reason why I would choose UAB again if I had the opportunity.
Thank you. Michelle, I know your time is short and you said you may have to leave early. So if you'd like to answer this question next.
Yeah, sure. So I didn't really visit any other campuses. Like, we have UAH up here. I never really liked the feel of UAH. It just felt too like clinical almost. But when I visited UAB, I'm not a big fan of Birmingham. I just don't like the traffic. It feels kind of crowded, but for some reason, I just loved UAB's campus. And I don't know, it felt right. And then when I got down there, I realized like I had made the absolute right decision, just because the professors, I was able to actually talk to them. A lot of my friends that even went to bigger schools are like, yeah, I think I see my professor from like the 6th row back. And that's as close as I ever get. And just being able to have that access. Yeah, there's some classes that are a little bit big, but you can still go and talk to the professor. It was just the ease of access. Once again, I think Desland looked over my resume and critiqued it about 600 times. And just having that ability to, be able to get that feedback was very important. And I don't know if Project Lab is still going on, but that was
Yes.
something that I did. It is?
Yes, Dr. Wick's on here. He can talk about it more.
Yeah, Dr. Wick started it, and it was just really cool to be able to have that inter-cooperation with, I think we did some with the art department, and it was really cool to see how engineering is not just engineering. It covers a lot of, it's not just math and science. It covers a lot of different areas, and that was a really great experience. And I wouldn't if I had ever gotten, if my full expenses paid, whatever, accepted at MIT, I would probably still choose UAB over it, because it was just such a great experience, and the people are great, and I wouldn't trade it so at all.
Michelle. Zoe?
I think the most appealing thing to UAB for me was the diversity. I visited, I think 3 schools when I was looking for somewhere to go for undergrad, mostly places in the Southeast in general. But I really appreciated the diversity in Birmingham and at UAB, especially now that I'm at the University of Notre Dame, which is very white and Catholic. I mean, the graduate student population is very diverse, but all the students that I teach are pretty much from the same racial, socioeconomic backgrounds. And it was really nice having colleagues and peers who are from very different backgrounds, which came to shine through whenever we would study together, when we would work together, and whenever I would be making new friends. So that was great for me.
Cheers.
So whenever, like I mentioned earlier, I thought I wanted to go to dental school to begin with. So it was a matter of just picking a college that had like biology for undergrad. So not necessarily engineering related, but just picking a school in general. And I always felt like UAB, despite being in Birmingham, it felt like a very small campus. Like I visited Auburn and I loved it. It was beautiful, but it was just sprawling and everything was so far away and it felt so far away and you couldn't stand in one spot and almost see the building that you're headed to. Same thing in Tuscaloosa, it just all felt very sprawling. And so I really loved UAB because whenever I went to visit, they showed us like Blazer Hall and like, this is where you'll probably live. And, then we walked around to some of the other buildings and it was like, here's the library and, here's this and here's that. And you could see it all from the dorm, which doesn't sound like a very big deal, but it is whenever you've never lived away from home and you're young and you're kind of scared. And it's like, and especially if you're like me, you get a little panicky and it's like, okay, it's okay. I'm not going to get lost because I can see how to get back home from everywhere I'm going, and then, as I got older and, got used to being down there, it just felt very small. It felt very quaint, even folks that like I didn't know that weren't in engineering, but you walk the same paths and you see the same people and you just feel like you kind of know everybody or at least know of everybody. The faces look familiar and it just feels very small, but you still have the opportunity to be in a big city. You still have good places to eat and things to do, and it's in a very good centralized location, and if you want to travel, you're right there by the airport. And so I just really feel like it's the best of both worlds in terms of giving that small school vibe in a big city.
So last question that I have so far, unless we have anybody submit one in the chat, but what has been most beneficial or influential for you in your career from your time as a student at UAB to processing in your professional career?
I'll go. I think I mentioned Dr. Waldron earlier. I love him to death. He is such a tough professor. And he never cut you any slack. It didn't matter what the deal was. He never cut you any slack. He was tough, but he was fair, and he had his office hours and everything like that. And I just really feel like that set me up very well for, my professional, life in terms of, having a really hard task in front of me or facing a hard deadline, not even really even knowing where to get started, but knowing that I can get started and knowing to just like take a deep breath, Google if I have to, or go find somebody and talk to them if I have to, and just like get the ball rolling. Because if you can ever just get started on something, you're going to end up working in the right direction of getting it handled. Right. And he was always very good about, he would help, but he wouldn't help until he had to. And he made you sit there and think and figure it out for yourself and use some deductive reasoning and talk to the people around you instead of talking to him. But he just did it in a manner that was very encouraging. It didn't feel like he was putting you off. He just did a really great job of just encouraging that whole, forcing you to take on things that felt overwhelming. And his exams were the same way. Gosh, he had those exams that had 4 questions on them and they were so hard. And, just the daunting feeling of there's only 4 questions on this exam. But I just feel like the way that he taught and the way that he taught us to take on things that we didn't know how to do and coming up with a way to figure it out. Honestly, that's the best lesson that anybody can give anybody for going into a career. Because at the end of the day, college is a good basis of knowledge, but you're going to learn what you're going to do on the job. And you're going to learn something on this project that you're going to use on the next project. And then you're going to do that for so long, you'll think, okay, I've got a grip on this. And then something will come out of left field and smack you. And you're like, oh gosh, I don't know what I'm doing again. And that whole having to constantly learn and evolve, that feeling is never going to go away. And so I feel like just getting a grip on how to handle situations like that and be successful in them is honestly the best thing that they could have taught me. And he did that. So
I love that you brought up Dr. Waldron, because I feel like I started my career of asking people stupid questions in his office. He answered so many of my questions, and he was an incredibly patient professor. So I have to second that as well. He was a fantastic professor and totally set me up for success. Oh no, Zoe left. I was hoping to give her a second. But yeah, and I think the other thing I would say is I think it's a result of professors like Dr. Waldron and others as well that helped me develop the confidence that I needed to be successful in the working world, to get into graduate school, to perform as a PhD student, because I was allowed to sort of enter a space not knowing things and was allowed to figure them out in a group environment. And I think that was, I don't know if I would have been able to develop that type of confidence without the support from my professors. And I don't know if I would have gotten the support at a larger university. So I am very thankful. Definitely think that UAB, more so than any other institution I could have gone to, set me up for success in that particular way.
Well, that is all the questions I have. If anybody has anything else, please feel free to unmute yourself. Otherwise, we are at 7 o'clock. So we've met our 1 hour limit, but happy to stay on for a second if there are any other questions. This was recorded. We will be sending that out once we've had it finalized. And I am going to drop in our chat real quick, in case any of our alumni have not updated their information with us. The way we keep you up to date with what's happening at our school is by having the correct contact information. So I'm putting that link here. You can go there and update your contact information for us. That way you can know what's happening at the school, especially as the fall is kicking off. Also, I want to remind everyone we do have a mentorship program, which Deslin and Molly Kate will be kicking off in a few weeks. So if you're interested in that, please email me or Deslin if you have her email. She can put that in the chat as well. Otherwise, thank you all so much for your time this evening. Thank you to our panelists for making time, and for everyone who attended. I really appreciate you joining us, and have a great evening.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.